What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. It is Tuesday. Some call it Take Tuesday. It used to be called Tangent Tuesday. And we got a lot going on. A lot of NFL news flying around, holdouts, hold-ins, injuries, torn ACLs, broken hands. We got stuff happening left and right. Harbaugh had to write a statement because people were coming after him about his injury diagnosis on Rashawn Slater, where he wouldn't really say anything. He's going to be fascinating to watch with the weekly injury reports. Just a beauty. But I wanted to dive into some stuff. Mahomes was asked about, just getting lapped in terms of quarterback contracts. And I think there's a lesson into how things are reported, how NFL news is given out with agents, and the reality of the situation when it comes to cold, hard cash. I wanted to hit on a couple business things of the NFL. There was a report about some in-game interviews. The Bills fans aren't super happy because the new stadium is not going to be cheap for them. And something I noticed today at Patriot camp, which we talk a lot about on the show, the difference of being the assistant and being the lead dog. And then we'll just hit on some other things that I saw around the NFL. And, of course, a little Take Tuesday, something on the Olympics that I've noticed. I watched a decent amount of Olympics, had it on all day today. In the background, is actually on right now. Let me turn that off really quick so it's not flickering in the background with handball and women's rugby. But before we dive into football, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time. Been hammering this for a long time. You guys need to do something fun. Because doing something fun is the easiest way to relax. Because listen, we're all high-stress people, grinding away, just swinging our pick on a daily basis. And sometimes Friday and Saturday comes, it's like, what are we going to do? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to go to a concert, and you're going to enjoy it. You're going to go to a baseball game. This fall, you're going to go to a football game. And you're going to do it because of Game Time and this podcast. Because they got great deals, flash ticketing pricing that you can find up to 60% off. It's very easy to search wherever you live, any event coming to town in terms of price points, where you're sitting, the view of the stage or the field. I cannot recommend them enough. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I've told this story before, but I'll talk about it a little bit again because I think it applies to Mahomes. And when I left Philadelphia in 2012 to move back to the West Coast to do college scouting, because Daniel Jeremiah, who is obviously on NFL Network and the lead draft guy, took over for Mayock when he took over the Raiders GM job, worked for the Eagles. That's how I first met him. And when he got hired with the NFL Network, I essentially begged for the West Coast job. I wanted to get back west. And luckily, most people in the building who had longer tenures than me were West Coast people. And that obviously worked as an advantage. Plus, I was relatively cheap labor. And when I got back, I had to live somewhere. And at the time, most of my friends, a lot of people I went to college with, were all living in San Francisco. It was booming because all these sales jobs with all the tech companies like Oracle and Facebook and Apple and Google and you name it. And it was much easier to get a job in the city that did not exist 3 or 4 years previously. So it was a lot of fun. And I wanted to move to San Francisco. And a buddy of mine, through a family friend, had just bought a place. And I moved in with him. And this guy played baseball in college for an Ivy League school and was really, really smart. and went to work in finance and started making big cash very early in his, like, right after he graduated college. Ivy League elite, just a dude's dude and brilliant. And when I moved in with him, he was changing jobs and he was going to work for a different firm like VC. I don't know the exact, like, the way you would describe his industry, but it was moving and shaking with cash, investing in shit. And one thing he was big on is he fought for a title. He wanted to be like a vice president at this firm. And that was a big deal to him. And then, like 6 months later, when the bonuses came out, he's like, I kind of got screwed. I didn't realize when I fought for this title, in my previous jobs, I saw these VPs making big money and I didn't put enough emphasis on it. And he's like, the reality I learned is a title and words, shaking hands to create a deal are completely meaningless. I would have rather have been called an intern and doubled the bonus. And I think you see that a lot with these quarterback contracts. All these things are flying, all these numbers are flying, and they're really hollow. How many people listening to this right now that work in any industry that know if you're trying to land a deal, if you're working on a deal, words are pretty meaningless. Until something is written on a contract and both sides have signed, nothing really matters. And I think you see with these quarterback contracts, these huge numbers. And I've been saying forever, nothing is more meaningless than average per year. You know who is obsessed with average per year? The agent. Why? Makes them look good. And I don't blame them. That's their job. The better they look, the more clients they get, the longer their book of players grows, and the more money their firm and they make individually. That is their job. But in terms of teams, the general manager, the head coach, and most importantly, the contract negotiator and the owner, what are they obsessed with? Cash flow. How much do we actually have to pay this player? Like I said, Jordan Love in his contract is making $75 million before Christmas. He gets a $25 million payment now. He gets another one in October, and he gets another one the second week of December. So we get $75 million before the end of this calendar year. That's money now. And anyone knows money now is more valuable than money in 2 years. Hell, we've just seen the last 3 or 4 years, historic amount of inflation. You always want more money up front. But Patrick Mahomes was asked recently about the contract he signed. And a lot of people, when he originally signed it, thought he was crazy because he signed a 10-year contract. People are like, no one does that because you want the ability to re-hit free agency. And he just said, listen, I'm happy for all the other guys. I feel very comfortable. This is not verbatim what he said, but just kind of giving you the Cliff Note version. I feel very comfortable with where we're at. We've made some adjustments to it. And I also feel very comfortable with the group that I work with, meaning Andy and Brett Veach. And let's face it, most players and most agents are just using these teams, and rightfully so, to just get as much money as humanly possible. They don't really trust the GM or the owner. But Patrick Mahomes has learned, and like any human being, obviously most of us, our numbers aren't 45 or 50 or $55 million a year. But if you get into business with people, and the older you get, the more experience you have, you've been in business with people you don't really trust, you don't feel that comfortable with, you're not, dead set on buying into the future with these people. And then sometimes you get in bed with people you trust just unequivocally. Like you don't even hesitate to go, yeah, what do you need? I'm in. What can I do? And it's less about the money and more about the belief and big picture of where we're going to go, because this is going to work. And when you trust and believe in people, it's easier to make more money over the long term. Now, Patrick Mahomes, don't get it twisted. He will make, and I heard Mike Florio say this, between 2023, so last season, through 2026, more actual cash than any player who's under contract right now. And that includes all the new contracts signed. He will make $215 million over the next 4 years. The only guy who's remotely close to him is Joe Burrow, who's a couple $1 million less. That's actual money, not fake numbers on a contract. not numbers that can change if you have a catastrophic injury. That's real cash flow. And listen, that's never how these contracts are going to be reported. And unless you dive deep and are obsessed with this type of stuff, you could argue it's kind of irrelevant how much cash these guys, whether they get $30 million this year or $46 million this year. But when it comes to the best player in the league, and let's face it, the most important player currently in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, he's the highest paid guy in the league when it comes to actual dollars, right? So you can have all these fake numbers. You can say this contract's bigger than that. Tua got more guaranteed money on paper than Patrick Mahomes. None of that means anything when one guy actually gets more cash. And I think one thing Patrick Mahomes learned that only a small percentage of players ever get to go through is he learns that I should trust Andy Reid and Brett Veach with everything. Because the more I win, the more money I will make the rest of my life. Like Joe Montana in 2024 is still really valuable. Tom Brady, before he retired, signed a $375 million contract with Fox to broadcast games. No one even knew if he could do it. And they almost gave him $400 million. Why? Because he's widely considered the greatest player in the history of the sport, and he has 7 Super Bowls. Would he have signed that contract if he had 2 Super Bowls? No, he would not have. Because that number wouldn't have been that high. And I remember talking to a player who's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. And he was part of the negotiations for one of the CBAs. And he's like, I don't think most people understand we don't make that much money in the playoffs. And that's true. If you make 10, 15, 20, $30 million during the regular season, once you get to the playoffs, it's slotted by round. Meaning if you're the star pass rusher or the star quarterback or the star wide receiver, you make the same as the 52nd guy on the roster. And it goes up by the round. But you do realize when you win in the playoffs, like Mahomes and Kelsey have done, like Peyton Manning has done winning Super Bowls, like Eli did winning a couple Super Bowls. Obviously, Tom is the best example, and now Patrick Mahomes is doing. It gives you value in perpetuity. You are always valuable from a marketing standpoint. And that's what Patrick Mahomes has with the Kansas City Chiefs. So if on paper he looks like he's making a little less, if people talk about why his contract, he doesn't give a shit because he knows 2 things. 1, the most important thing, the actual money coming into his bank account. And 2, he works with the best in the business. Where if you were a player on just a random team, even if you like the coach and like the GM, like why would you ever quote unquote take a discount or quote unquote not fight for every penny? You know, at any moment, those guys could be fired. At any moment, they could try to replace you. It happens all the time, literally with every team. And Patrick Mahomes has seen firsthand, 1, they'll invest in the team. When a guy gets really good, right, like Chris Jones, they ended up taking care of him. And when they have to make a big picture risky move, they've proven that they can make it work. Tom experienced this for 20 years of Bill Belichick. Listen, it was some of the things he did when the news broke, you're like, Bill is nuts. And then it tended to work out. And they tended to always be in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. And Tom obviously was a huge part of that and then benefited and continues to benefit because of the success they had. So I think the one life lesson I've taken forever is until it's on paper, nothing matters. And titles, and, the perception of something can be a little overrated. You can call me an intern all day long if you're paying me $10 million. Who cares? Not playing best ball at DraftKings? You're missing out. Here's what you need to know. DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest is their biggest fantasy contest ever. We're talking 15 million guaranteed prize pool with 2 millionaires being crowned for the first and second place. If you're set it and forget it type, then Best Ball is for you. No waiver wires, no roster management, bigger roster so injuries won't end your season. Only the draft and that's it. You're set for the year. 15 million prize pool. Still not convinced? Check this out. This year, DraftKings is offering everyone a Draft One, Get One special.
Your $20 entry fee scores you a bonus ticket. Get in on all the best ball action. Download the DraftKings app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for all customers who enter the NFL Best Ball 15 Millionaire contest to get a bonus ticket and get a shot at being crowned one of the 2 millionaires only on DraftKings. A couple things on the business of the NFL. There was a report that came out, I think from Florio last week, and then Peter Schrager added to it today on Good Morning Football Los Angeles, which I think they're getting up at like 1 a.m. to do a morning show for the East Coast in LA, which is kind of stupid in theory, but then you realize they own the real estate in LA, not in New York, and they're paying a premium. People are like, well, the NFL is making so much money. Why are they cutting? No, the NFL teams and the games are making money. The media is not. So just because one thing's making money doesn't mean you're just like, yeah, we're just cool with this other entity not making money. That's not usually the way the world works. But one element to the NFL is they are very, I would say, beholden to their TV partners. Why? That's where their money comes from. So when CBS, NBC, obviously Fox, and now Amazon, hell, even Netflix, have some weird ass that make coaches uncomfortable, you know what the response usually is from the league? Like, we kind of got to do what they say. Now, like in any business partnership, there are certain times where you have to draw a line in the sand. But this one's kind of easy because they already do it. So for the 2024 season and moving forward, each team has to make a coach available, whether it be the head coach or one of the coordinators, in both halves. Now, these coaching interviews, we all agree are really dumb. You get very little to nothing. They already happen, usually once a game, right? You get Kyle Shanahan running off the field, or you talk to Belichick or Andy right before the game. It's like, yeah, we're ready. We've had a good week of practice. Can't wait to see the boys play. But that's what the TV partners want. And if the TV partners want it, what are you supposed to do? Say no? That seems like a pretty easy ask to go, yeah. And one thing that's going to be fascinating is that you can give the coordinators. Now, a large percentage of the coordinators are up in the box. So even if you wanted to give one of your guys the ability to talk, it's probably not going to be possible. But some of the coordinators are on the field. And it'll be very interesting to see if any teams, because I think the majority of the teams will just have the head coach do the 20, 30-second interview on both halves, if that's ultimately what, the TV networks need on that given game. I bet sometimes they don't use them both if it's pretty terrible. Who knows? We'll see. But there will be a team or two that goes, yeah, let's let our coordinator do it. Now, the coordinator could be a little bit more of a wild card on game day. I know if I ran a team, like if I was the GM or the owner, I would just say, head coach, you do them both. Whatever time that they need to put a microphone in front of you during the game, pre-game, halftime, coming out from half, you're the guy speaking. And I would imagine the overwhelming majority, I don't want to say 100%, but well over 90. I'm sure we'll see a couple coordinators throughout the year talk, maybe if the coach is caught up doing something, but it's just going to be more head coaches doing coach speak. And the Bills, it looks like they're going to get, I think they've already officially have a new stadium coming. It's not going to be for a little while, but the reaction of the pricing has been pretty eye-opening. They talked to a bunch of fans, and they're not happy because anytime you get a new stadium, you do the seat licensing, which sucks. You basically just pay a flat fee to get the right to buy the tickets. Now, that also gives you ownership over that seat for concerts and other events. But still, when you have an old, shitty stadium, that never existed. And when you build the new one, the easiest way to pay for it, so the owners, Jerry figured this out a long time ago, was just create a revenue stream out of thin air. And that's what a seat license is. But everyone's doing it. And it sucks if you're a season ticket holder. I saw one quote from a Bills fan was like, listen, I'm going to have to spend a lot more money, but I had two choices. One, give up my tickets and no longer go, or continue to be a season ticket holder. Now, I've always believed that like season tickets, in 2024, little overrated. Game time. I mean, you can get tickets whenever you want to any event. Does everyone go to every game? Now, I understand it from a business standpoint for clients, for giveaways, but I wonder if season tickets are going to be as big of a deal in 15, 20 years as they were 20, 30 years ago. But I get it. Football is a lot easier than I can't even comprehend having like baseball season tickets. As just an individual, I get it from a corporation standpoint. But football, you get a couple weeks off where the team's on the road. I understand it. I know a lot of season ticket holders. But yeah, I mean, anytime your team builds a new stadium, these seat licenses suck. Now, one thing I saw the Bills say is that the club level seats, which are typically the most expensive beside a suite, are going to be very, very expensive. But you do get a lot more. And I can only speak from just going to like SoFi Stadium. When I went to the Niner game, it was week 17 a couple years ago. Crazy Niner comeback that basically got him into the playoffs. I did, and took some buddies because they took me to LA Country Club. So it was a little, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. And I remember the club seats were awesome. Just in terms of the site, because they're typically right on the second level. And in football, unlike basketball or baseball, being a little higher is actually better. And the amenities were just incredible. I mean, it's hard to describe. The bars, the food, it was real. I was blown away. And if I was someone like, I do think if you can afford it, the club level seats at a lot of these new stadiums really make it worth it and create an experience that these old, decrepit, shitty stadiums, there's something special about it. Like I still have a little nostalgia for going to Candlestick, or even when I went to the Coliseum with the Raiders. It's just old, it's grimy, but once the game starts, it's just about football because the food sucks. The concourse is miserable. The bathrooms are awful. There's a purity to it, but that's not what this stuff's about anymore. It's about revenue generation, and these new stadiums just, kind of have the market cornered on that. There was a video that went viral today of Jerod Mayo, the new Patriot head coach, going over to Matt Judon, who's doing this like hold-in thing, wants a raise. I was looking at his contract. To me, it looks like he's making $7 million this year based on actual cash. A lot of people reported that number's a little under 14. Regardless, in his mind, he had a couple straight years of, I think he had almost 28 sacks over a 2-year period. Last year, he only played in a couple games because he had a season-ending injury, but he wants a big raise. And this is the last year under contract. He wants a long-term deal. Who knows how this is going to play out? But it got me thinking, because I talk about this a lot on this podcast, is the difference of going from a position coach or a coordinator to the head man. There is no training for that. Because this is a situation that over the last 25 years, anything that happened with the Patriots, when it came to injuries, when it came to guys getting in trouble, I mean, they had the crazy shit happen to them over that period of time. And they had a player kill someone down the street from his house. Regardless, Belichick handled it. His assistants did not have to deal with it. Not only handled the situation, whether they cut a player, traded a player, extended a player, you just coached who was ever there. He then picked a player to, if he traded someone to add to the roster, it was never your problem. You dealt with none of that. And Jerod Mayo, it's not like he's been a lot of other places. He's only worked for Bill. So now you get thrust into this role, and within like a 3-day span, one of your best players has blood clots and is out for who knows long. Let's just hope Christian Barmore stays healthy and is able to come back and play. You could argue your most talented defensive player, Judon, when healthy, is just being weird. There's one thing to be doing a hold in and stand there. Ayuk's doing that. Jamar Chase doing that. Today, when Jerod Mayo went and talked to him, he was just sitting on a dummy, which I would imagine Jerod Mayo was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, either stand, watch the drill. You can't just sit on this thing. And they basically kicked him out of practice. But this is all on him. So when someone gets a DUI, when someone has blood clots, when someone has a contract issue, that is your problem. You don't just get to worry about your unit and worry about the scheme. You got to worry about all this crap. And to me, this is why so many coaches fail, because there is no training ground for this, especially being a younger coach. Now, one thing he can do, maybe more than just some other guy that didn't play, is he can have a conversation with the player, kind of player to player. I remember when I worked with the Eagles, Deuce Staley was really good with players because he could get on their ass because he could kind of relate. Like, I've been through these situations, fellas. Fucking try a little harder here, buddy. And it was some coaches, couldn't really pull that off. There was a story the other day of a fan bringing that Mahomes doll. The Raiders didn't bring it, which at first you didn't quite know what was going on. The video went viral. It was a fan brought it. But the player got it and was making fun of it and obviously went viral, and it got back to the Chiefs. Well, I read the other day that Antonio Pierce said they had a team meeting, addressed it, nipped it in the bud, and it's no longer going to be an issue. That's a good example. If you're an assistant coach, that ain't your problem. That ain't your issue. Maybe you get on the guy individually in a position meeting, but it's not on you to fine him, to suspend him, to make him run. That's the head coach's job. And Antonio Pierce, Jerod Mayo, they're thrown into the deep end. And this is really, really difficult. Obviously, when you look at the Patriots, this is going to be a really hard year. Their team isn't that good. They're already having issues. They have another contract issue, I think, with the nose tackle. It's just, they got a lot going on. And if he can handle this, more power to him. Maybe he's destined to be a great coach. But this would sink a lot of guys that know what they're doing, let alone a guy who's been a head coach now for what, 5 months? Not even. So Godspeed to Jerod Mayo. Let's fire through some NFL news because there was a lot going on today. Lamar Jackson looks like he's no longer sick, and he was at practice, so he's feeling good. Good to see. We like all of our star players healthy and on the field. Speaking of players not on the field, is the one shitty part about training camp, the part that I miss by far the least, is, and listen, I don't quite understand how coaches and GMs get numb to it, but I think the longer you're in the business, you never get numb to losing your best players in practice, but you do kind of get numb to losing players in training camp with major injuries. It's just kind of part of the business. There is no avoiding it. Every team in some form or fashion has, at minimum, guys pulling hamstrings, guys breaking hands. Obviously, the worst case scenario is any Achilles or torn knee. Well, Sam Williams, I don't want to call him a star, but he's a really, really talented young player, in a special team drill, got locked up and tore his ACL and MCL and is obviously out for the season and was carted off the field. And those are type moments in practice that just rattle you. They really do, because this sounds like a pretty innocuous kickoff or kickoff return drill. They're just kind of, connected. I don't know exactly how it goes down, but anyone that's ever been to a football practice where a guy tears a knee, could be high school, it could be college, or it could be the pros, the whole place goes silent because the guy's laying on the ground, and then when the cart comes out, everyone knows it's not good. And you're just in the back of your mind, or your fingers are crossed. Best case scenario, it's a bad strain, or he's just freaking out. But most people know, that's it. And that can rattle you. And as a coach, as a front office person, you don't have a choice. You have to move on. I mean, within the next day, you probably have to bring in free agents off the street and work them out. Because one, you need another body to run practice. And two, you just lost that player, the guy who plays for you and impacts your team. And it's very, very difficult at this time to do much, right? Because there's one more time during the year, the big cut down, where you can add players. But let's face it, if you need tackles, if you need pass rushers, they're typically not available, right? That's just not the time. And you're just kind of shit out of luck. So I hate seeing that, but it's just part of the deal. Russell Wilson missed another practice with his calf injury. Is there a chance he's just kind of old? Is there a chance that at this point in time, he's just kind of a lot of tread on his tires and just your classic kind of beaten up athlete? This is what used to happen. You played in the NFL for 11, 12, 13 years, and then it just gets kind of ugly. And who could have thought that 5 years ago with this player? But the last couple years on the field have not been great. Now he's got a calf injury. I've said forever, like I'm out on this guy. And I thought in his peak, he was one of the more entertaining, definitely one of the more spectacular players. I've seen him live a bunch, but that guy's long gone. And I'm not acting like Justin Fields is some superstar in the making, but how, if you were a Steeler fan, would you want to watch Russell Wilson play quarterback, even if he was healthy? Like, let's just see what we have in Justin Fields. Worst case scenario, we just go to Russell. Like, I want to start with Fields, see if we can build up his confidence, see if, we can improve him. Even with his flaws, he can play better with us than he did with the Bears. Let's see if there's anything there. We know what Russell is. An old, trending down player whose athleticism is diminishing and who lost his confidence. Does Fields have anything? Because if he does, maybe we can strike oil. Not likely you're going to strike oil, but at least see if there's anything there. That's what I would want. Taylor Decker, Lions tackle, signs a 3-year, $60 million deal. I think he gets about a little over half of that guaranteed. And the Lions have just signed a lot of their good players. Sewell's under contract, Goff's under contract, St. Brown's under contract, now Decker's under contract. This happens a lot during training camp, and it's happening all over the league of like, this guy looks remarkable. This guy, best camp of his career. That's what they're saying about Jameson Williams. And I'm not trying to make fun of the Lions. That's happening all over the league. But they obviously have a lot of talented players on that team. And if Jameson Williams is just good to go with to Gibbs, the running back, Laporta, St. Brown, their offensive line's really good. If their defense is just a little bit better, Lions are going to be a problem again. They got all their coaching staff back. They didn't lose their offensive coordinator. Hard not to like the Lions. And last but not least, Tristan Wirfs. I think this is the complicated part. He's a star tackle. Some of these other guys have gotten paid. You got Trent Williams right now who wants more money. I think some of these tackles go, wait, you're telling me a wide receiver is more valuable than me? This guy's making $35 million and you want to pay me 26? How does that pencil? I think the biggest gripe in the NFL right now are star tackles. If I'm Trent Williams, like the minimum raise we got to figure out, I want $30 million a year. That'll put a smile on my face. 25 is a slap in my face. Because one, I know you can't play without me. I know you don't want to do that, and we all acknowledge, like, I'm the best tackle. Wirfs goes, I'm easily one of the best tackles. Penei Sewell said I'm one of the best tackles. How is my number a lot less than Justin Jefferson? Justin Jefferson last year, his team was kind of irrelevant. He was banged up. No one thinks the Vikings are going to be any good this year. So Devontae Adams makes all that money. His team struggles to win 7 games. You're winning with me. And I play the position blocking the second highest paid position in the league behind quarterbacks in these pass rushers. Aren't I equally as important as a pass rusher? If I can block a $30 million player, shouldn't then I make $30 million? Isn't that the way it should work? I think tackles have one of the biggest gripes in the league. And I think we're going to retire Tangent Tuesday and we'll call it Take Tuesday. The Olympics. And I've watched a decent amount of Olympics. My one overall take for the Summer Olympics, I understand the business of this. NBC, Peacock, which is the same thing, spending a lot of money, and they need inventory. So they've added a bunch of sports. I have a lot of respect for surfers. I don't do the ocean. Why? That's where sharks live. I'm not trying to get my leg bit off. And I've never even attempted surfing. I snowboarded once and I quit. I was like, this is too hard. A lot of respect for how hard it is. Same thing with skateboarding. Never been a big skateboarder. Rollerbladed a little bit. It's very, very difficult to be a good skateboarder. When you say surfing and skateboarding, do you think Olympics? Handball. I think I said yesterday on the mailbag, if I was a former Division I athlete, if I played college football, if I was a fringe NBA, NFL guy, I would go out for handball. When you watch handball on television, you go, this is an Olympic sport. Track and field, swimming, gymnastics, staples of the Summer Olympics. Basketball, totally get it. I love golf. I really do. I would say I am like in the 99 percentile of consuming the PGA Tour and following the sport. It shouldn't be an Olympic sport. It just shouldn't. I mean, I'm sorry. Now, clearly, they have added a lot of these sports to fill television windows. Because after Simone Biles is done and the swimming's over, like, what else would you do? So you want more sports. I get the business. But I think we all have to acknowledge it feels like half the things we see. I was watching the synchronized diving yesterday. I can't even imagine how difficult that was. There were two girls, one with the last name Cook, one with the last name Bacon. Their parents were wearing shirts that said Cook and Bacon. It was cool. And they finished. One of the girls from Australia almost missed the board, fucked up. Our girls got the silver medal. It was sweet. They started crying. They've been best friends for like 15, 20 years. It's a cool moment. I get it. Like I'm pro. Every time I want to hate the Olympics, once I watch swimming or gymnastics or the track and field, you get really into it. You get very patriotic. Come on, America. Simone Biles, she's battling through her calf injury. But I'm sorry, when I see handball, table tennis, ping pong, I think we've all played a little bit here and there. Some are better than others. That's an Olympic sport? I don't know. I just don't quite get it. I really don't.